The Nazca Desert stretches across southern Peru like a vast geological laboratory, its surface bearing witness to one of humanity's most enigmatic achievements. This seemingly barren expanse, positioned between the Andes Mountains and the Pacific Ocean, possesses a unique combination of geological and environmental characteristics that have preserved ancient markings for millennia. The desert's foundation rests upon sedimentary layers deposited over millions of years, creating a stable platform that has remained largely unchanged since the Nazca culture first began etching their mysterious patterns into the earth. The geological composition of this region reveals itself through a distinctive surface layer that appears almost artificially designed for preservation. Dark stones, ranging from deep brown to nearly black, blanket the desert floor in a phenomenon known as desert pavement. These rocks have acquired their characteristic coloration through a process called desert varnish, where iron and manganese oxides accumulate on exposed surfaces over thousands of years. The iron oxide coating, essentially a natural patina, forms when microscopic amounts of these metals combine with moisture and oxygen in the atmosphere, creating a protective shell that shields the underlying rock from erosion. Beneath this dark surface layer lies a dramatically different substrate composed of lighter coloured sand, clay and crushed rock. The contrast between the oxidized surface stones and the pale subsurface material creates the perfect medium for creating visible markings. When the ancient Nazca people removed the dark stones to expose the lighter ground beneath, they essentially created a natural photographic negative that would endure for centuries. The depth of these removals typically measures between 4 to 6 inches, sufficient to reach the contrasting layer while maintaining the structural integrity of the design. The hyper-arid conditions that characterize the Nazca Desert represent one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Annual precipitation rarely exceeds half an inch, and some years pass without any measurable rainfall whatsoever. This extreme dryness results from the region's position in the rain shadow of the Andes Mountains, which block moisture-laden air masses from the Amazon basin. Additionally, the cold Humboldt Current flowing northward along the Pacific coast creates a temperature inversion that prevents the formation of precipitation-bearing clouds. Temperature variations in the desert follow predictable patterns that have remained consistent for millennia. Daytime temperatures frequently exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit during summer months, while nighttime temperatures can drop below freezing during winter. These extreme diurnal temperature fluctuations contribute to the breakdown of surface rocks through thermal expansion and contraction, gradually creating the fine particles that form the desert's substrate. However, the lack of water prevents the chemical weathering processes that would otherwise obliterate surface markings in more humid environments. Wind patterns across the Nazca Desert play a crucial role in both the formation and preservation of the lines. Prevailing winds generally blow from the southwest, carrying minimal moisture from the Pacific Ocean. These winds possess sufficient strength to remove loose particles from the surface but lack the intensity needed to displace the carefully arranged stones that define the geoglyphs. The consistent direction of these winds has actually aided in the preservation process by preventing the accumulation of sand and debris within the cleared pathways. The 450 square mile area containing the primary concentration of Nazca Lines encompasses a roughly triangular region bounded by the towns of Nazca, Palpa and Ingenio. This zone represents only a fraction of the total desert area, but contains the highest density of geoglyphs and the most spectacular examples of the ancient artwork. The terrain within this region varies considerably, ranging from relatively flat pampa areas to rolling hills and deep quebradas that cut through the desert floor. Elevation changes across the line fields range from approximately 1,200 feet above sea level in the lower valleys to over 2,000 feet on the surrounding plateaus. These elevation differences create distinct microclimates that influence wind patterns and moisture retention, factors that may have played a role in determining where the ancient builders chose to create their most elaborate designs. The highest concentrations of lines appear on the flat pampa areas where visibility extends for miles in all directions, suggesting that the creators prioritize locations offering maximum visual impact. Natural landmarks within the region include several prominent hills that rise above the general desert floor. Cerro Blanco, the highest sand dune in the world at over 2,000 feet tall, dominates the northern portion of the line fields. This massive formation serves as a natural reference point visible from great distances, and may have held ceremonial significance for the ancient Nazca people. Other significant elevations include the hills surrounding the modern town of Nazca and the elevated plateaus that border the Ingenio Valley. The underground aquifer systems beneath the Nazca Desert represent a hidden network of water resources that sustained ancient civilizations in this otherwise inhospitable environment. These aquifers exist at varying depths, typically ranging from 30 to 150 feet below the surface, and follow the natural drainage patterns established by ancient river systems. The water originates primarily from precipitation in the Andes Mountains, travelling underground through porous rock layers before emerging at specific locations throughout the desert. Archaeological evidence suggests that the ancient Nazca people possessed sophisticated knowledge of these underground water sources. They constructed elaborate underground aqueduct systems called puquios, many of which continue to function today. These engineering marvels consist of gently sloping tunnels that tap into aquifer systems and channel water to surface locations where it could be used for irrigation and domestic purposes. The construction of these aqueducts required precise understanding of local geology and hydrology, indicating that the Nazca culture possessed advanced technical knowledge. The relationship between surface markings and underground water sources reveals intriguing patterns that have sparked numerous theories about the line's purpose. Many of the larger geoglyphs appear to be positioned near known aquifer locations or along the paths of underground water flow. Some researchers have identified correlations between line orientations and the direction of subsurface drainage, suggesting that the surface markings may have served as indicators or maps of underground water resources. Geological surveys have revealed that the aquifer systems follow complex patterns influenced by the underlying rock structure and ancient river channels. The water table depth varies significantly across the region, creating areas where water access would have been relatively easy compared to locations requiring deep excavation. These variations in water accessibility likely influence settlement patterns and may have determined the locations chosen for major ceremonial or artistic projects. The soil composition above the aquifers differs noticeably from areas lacking underground water sources. Higher moisture content, even at minimal levels, supports different microbial communities that can alter the chemical composition of surface materials. These subtle variations in soil chemistry may have been detectable to ancient peoples through changes in plant growth patterns or soil colour, providing additional clues about subsurface water locations. Modern hydrological studies have identified seasonal variations in aquifer levels that correspond to precipitation patterns in the Andes Mountains. During years of higher snowfall in the mountains, increased water flow reaches the desert aquifers with a delay of several months to years, depending on the distance travelled underground. This delayed response would have created predictable cycles of water availability that ancient cultures could have learned to anticipate and incorporate into their planning. The intersection of geological stability, extreme aridity, and hidden water resources created unique conditions that made the Nazca Desert an ideal location for large-scale artistic endeavours. The combination of preservative environmental factors with accessible water sources provided ancient cultures with both the technical means and the long-term motivation to invest enormous effort in creating permanent markings across the landscape. Understanding these foundational geographic and environmental factors proves essential for comprehending how such an ambitious artistic undertaking could have been conceived, executed, and preserved across the centuries. The systematic documentation of the Nazca Lines began not with dramatic aerial revelations, but through the methodical ground-level observations of a Peruvian archaeologist whose keen eye for detail would establish the foundation for all subsequent research. Toribio Mejia Cespe, working as part of Julio C. Tello's archaeological expedition in 1927, became the first trained scientist to formally document what local inhabitants had known for generations, that strange markings covered vast sections of the Nazca desert floor. Mejia Cespe's initial encounters with the lines occurred during routine archaeological surveys aimed at cataloguing pre-Columbian sites throughout the region. Walking across the desert pampa near the Nazca River valley, he noticed unusually straight pathways cleared of surface stones, extending far beyond normal sightlines across the flat terrain. These cleared areas appeared too regular and extensive to represent natural phenomena, yet their purpose remained completely unclear from ground level. The archaeologist documented these observations in his field notes, describing large artificial lines that seemed to connect various points across the desert landscape. The significance of Mejia Cespe's work extends beyond mere discovery, as his systematic approach to documentation established crucial baseline data about the line's construction and preservation. He noted that the cleared pathways consisted of carefully removed dark surface stones, exposing lighter-coloured subsurface material in patterns that maintained remarkable consistency across vast distances. His measurements indicated that individual lines varied in width from several feet to over 100 feet, with the larger examples maintaining parallel edges that suggested deliberate engineering rather than casual creation. Mejia Cespe's documentation efforts faced considerable challenges due to the limited perspective available from ground level. While he could follow individual lines for substantial distances by walking along their length, determining their overall patterns or endpoints required extensive hiking across difficult terrain. His field notes describe the frustration of attempting to map features that extended far beyond visual range, often disappearing into distant hills or merging with other markings in ways that defied comprehension from a terrestrial viewpoint. The archaeologist's initial theories about the line's purpose reflected the limited understanding possible from ground-level observation. He speculated that the markings might represent ancient roadways connecting ceremonial sites, though the absence of associated artifacts or clear destinations challenged this interpretation. Some lines appeared to lead toward prominent hills or geological features, suggesting possible astronomical or ceremonial significance, but definitive conclusions remained elusive without a comprehensive overview of the entire system. Mejia Cespe's documentation included detailed descriptions of the construction techniques evident in the line's creation. He observed that the ancient builders had not simply scraped away surface material, but had carefully selected and arranged stones to create clearly defined borders along many pathways. This level of precision indicated that the lines represented intentional artistic or ceremonial projects, rather than utilitarian constructions like roads or irrigation channels. The preservation state of the lines impressed Mejia Cespe, who noted that even the most delicate features showed minimal degradation despite their obvious antiquity. His observations of wind patterns and erosion processes led him to conclude that the desert environment provided exceptional preservation conditions, allowing surface modifications to survive for centuries or millennia with minimal alteration. This recognition of the line's antiquity and remarkable preservation would prove crucial for later researchers attempting to understand their cultural context. Paul Kosok's arrival in Peru during 1939 marked a revolutionary turning point in Nazca Lines research, though his initial interest focused on ancient irrigation systems rather than mysterious desert markings. The American historian from Long Island University had travelled to Peru to study pre-Columbian hydraulic engineering, particularly the sophisticated canal and aqueduct systems developed by ancient Andean cultures. His academic background in geography and history provided him with analytical tools perfectly suited for interpreting large-scale landscape modifications. Kosok's transition from irrigation specialist to geoglyph researcher occurred through a combination of local guidance and technological opportunity. While investigating ancient aqueduct systems in the Nazca region, local residents directed his attention to the strange markings that Mejia Cespe had documented over a decade earlier. Unlike previous researchers, Kosok possessed access to aircraft through his connections with the Peruvian military and civilian aviation services, providing him with the elevated perspective necessary to comprehend the line's true scope and complexity. The historian's first aerial survey flights revealed a landscape transformed beyond all ground-level expectations. From several hundred feet above the desert floor, individual lines that had appeared as isolated pathways from ground level suddenly revealed themselves as components of massive geometric patterns covering hundreds of square miles. Kosok's initial aerial photographs captured trapezoids, triangles, and rectangles of enormous proportions, some measuring over a mile in length and maintaining geometric precision that defied explanation through casual construction methods. Kosok's documentation efforts benefited from his systematic academic training and his recognition that he was observing phenomena of unprecedented archaeological significance. He organised his aerial surveys according to geographic grids, ensuring comprehensive coverage of the primary line fields, while maintaining detailed records of altitude, direction, and photographic angles for each observation flight. This methodical approach produced the first systematic aerial documentation of the Nazca Lines, establishing baseline data that would guide research efforts for decades. The revelation of figurative designs among the geometric patterns provided Kosok with his most spectacular discoveries. Flying over the desert in late afternoon light that enhanced contrast between cleared and uncleared areas, he identified massive representations of animals, birds, and other recognizable forms etched into the desert surface. These zoomorphic geoglyphs displayed artistic sophistication and technical precision that elevated the entire phenomenon beyond simple geometric exercises into the realm of monumental art. Kosok's identification of a spider figure measuring approximately 150 feet in length demonstrated the ancient builder's ability to create recognizable representations at scales requiring aerial perspective for proper appreciation. The spider's proportions and anatomical details remained accurate despite the enormous size, indicating that the creators possessed sophisticated techniques for scaling up detailed designs while maintaining visual coherence. Similar discoveries of monkey, hummingbird, and other animal figures revealed an extensive bestiary of oversized creatures inhabiting the desert landscape. The geometric patterns documented during Kosok's surveys displayed mathematical precision that suggested advanced planning and surveying capabilities among the ancient builders. Trapezoids maintained parallel sides across distances exceeding half a mile, while triangular forms achieved perfect symmetry despite their enormous scale. The consistency of these geometric relationships across multiple examples indicated that the craters possessed standardized construction techniques and possibly mathematical principles governing their design processes. Kosok's photographic documentation captured details invisible from ground level, including the relationship between different types of markings and their integration with natural landscape features. Some lines appeared to incorporate existing hills or geological formations as integral design elements, while others crossed varied terrain with apparent disregard for topographical obstacles. These observations suggested that the lines represented multiple construction phases or different functional categories rather than a single unified project. The historian's analysis of line orientations revealed intriguing patterns that would influence subsequent astronomical theories about the geoglyph's purpose. Many lines appeared to point towards specific points on the horizon where celestial bodies would rise or set at particular times of year, suggesting possible calendar or ceremonial functions related to agricultural cycles or religious observances. Kosok's documentation of these orientations provided crucial data for later researchers investigating astronomical alignments. Maria Reicher's introduction to the Nazca Lines in 1941 occurred through her collaboration with Paul Kosok, though her background in mathematics and astronomy brought entirely new analytical perspectives to the research. The German-born mathematician had arrived in Peru during the 1930s as a governess and tutor, but her scientific training and fascination with ancient cultures led her toward archaeological research. Her meeting with Kosok during his continued studies of the lines marked the beginning of a research partnership that would dominate Nazca studies for the following decades. Reicher's mathematical training enabled her to approach the lines with analytical tools previously unavailable to archaeological researchers. Her calculations of geometric relationships within the larger patterns revealed sophisticated mathematical principles governing their construction, including the use of consistent proportional systems and advanced geometric concepts. These mathematical analyses suggested that the ancient builders possessed knowledge of geometric principles typically associated with more advanced civilizations. The mathematician's initial astronomical observations identified specific alignments between certain lines and celestial phenomena, particularly the rising and setting positions of significant stars and constellations. Her calculations indicated that some lines pointed toward the positions where important stars would have appeared on the horizon during specific seasons in ancient times, suggesting that the geoglyphs might have functioned as a massive astronomical calendar or observatory system. Reicher's documentation of astronomical alignments required precise measurements of line orientations, combined with complex calculations, accounting for changes in stellar positions over centuries due to precession and other astronomical factors. Her mathematical background enabled her to perform these calculations with unprecedented accuracy, establishing specific correlations between geoglyph orientations and celestial events that would have been significant to ancient agricultural societies. The photographic documentation efforts during this early period faced numerous technical challenges related to primitive aviation equipment and limited photographic technology. Aircraft available for survey work consisted primarily of small single-engine planes with minimal stability and restricted payload capacity for camera equipment. Photographers had to contend with engine vibration, limited fuel capacity restricting flight duration, and unpredictable weather conditions that could obscure ground features or create dangerous flying conditions. Camera technology of the 1930s and early 1940s required large format equipment with substantial weight and bulk, creating logistical challenges for aerial photography. Film sensitivity limitations demanded optimal lighting conditions, typically available only during specific times of day when sun angles enhanced contrast between cleared and uncleared areas. The lack of telephoto lenses capable of producing detailed images from safe flying altitudes meant that photographers often had to fly dangerously low to capture usable documentation. Mapping challenges extended beyond simple photography to include the complex task of creating accurate geographic references for observed features. Without modern GPS technology or sophisticated surveying equipment, researchers had to rely on visual landmarks and basic compass bearings to establish the positions of specific lines and figures. This process required multiple flights with careful coordination between pilots and observers to triangulate positions and create preliminary maps of the geoglyph fields. The primitive nature of available aircraft also limited the extent and duration of survey flights, forcing researchers to prioritize specific areas for detailed documentation, while leaving vast sections of the desert incompletely surveyed. Fuel capacity restrictions meant that comprehensive coverage of the entire line field required multiple expeditions spread across months or years, creating challenges for maintaining consistent documentation standards and ensuring complete coverage of all significant features. Weather conditions in the Nazca region, while generally favourable for preservation of the lines themselves, created specific challenges for aerial documentation efforts. Thermal updrafts generated by intense desert heating could create severe turbulence that made precise photography extremely difficult. Seasonal variations in atmospheric clarity affected visibility and image quality, requiring careful timing of documentation flights to coincide with optimal conditions. The archaeological evidence scattered across the valleys and hillsides surrounding the famous geoglyphs reveals a sophisticated civilization that flourished between 200 BC and 700 AD, transforming one of Earth's most challenging environments into a thriving cultural centre. The Nazca people emerged from earlier Paracas traditions, inheriting advanced textile techniques and ceremonial practices while developing their own distinctive artistic and technological innovations. Their settlements dotted the river valleys that cut through the desert, creating green oases where elaborate irrigation systems supported dense populations and complex social hierarchies. The foundation of Nazca society rested upon their mastery of water management in an environment where surface water appeared only sporadically and underground sources required sophisticated engineering to access. The Puquio system, consisting of underground aqueducts that tapped into aquifer systems, represented the technological backbone that made permanent settlement possible in the desert region. These subterranean channels, many still functioning today, required precise knowledge of geology, hydraulics, and surveying techniques that rival modern engineering capabilities. Construction of the Puquios involved excavating spiral-shaped access shafts called ojos that allowed workers to reach underground channels and perform maintenance on the aqueduct systems. The spacing and positioning of these access points followed mathematical principles that ensured optimal water flow while minimizing construction effort. Archaeological surveys have identified over 40 distinct Puquio systems throughout Nazca territory, with individual aqueducts extending for miles underground and serving multiple settlements along their routes. The engineering precision evident in Puquio construction demonstrates that Nazca society possessed specialized classes of hydraulic engineers and surveyors capable of planning and executing complex infrastructure projects. The gradient calculations required to maintain proper water flow over long distances demanded mathematical knowledge and surveying instruments that left no archaeological trace, but whose effectiveness remains visible in the functioning aqueduct systems. This technical expertise in large-scale landscape modification provides crucial context for understanding how the same civilization could have planned and executed the massive geoglyph projects. Nazca settlements followed hierarchical patterns that reflected sophisticated social organization and centralized planning authority. The largest population centers occupied strategic positions near major Puquio systems and river confluences, where reliable water access supported dense urban development. Cahuachi, the primary ceremonial centre, sprawled across nearly 150 hectares and contained over 40 mounds and plaza complexes connected by processional pathways and ceremonial platforms. The urban planning evident at Cahuachi reveals architectural principles that prioritize ceremonial functions over residential comfort. Massive adobe platforms rose in stepped pyramidal forms that dominated the surrounding landscape, while plaza areas provided space for large gatherings during religious festivals and seasonal celebrations. The construction techniques employed massive adobe bricks and sophisticated drainage systems that protected ceremonial structures from occasional flood events while maintaining their imposing appearance across centuries. Residential areas surrounding the ceremonial core displayed clear status distinctions through architectural quality and proximity to water sources. Elite compounds featured multi-room structures with elaborate wall decorations and private courtyards, while common residential areas consisted of simpler single-room dwellings clustered around shared facilities. The distribution of imported goods and luxury items within these residential areas provides evidence for trade networks that extended across the Andes and down to coastal regions. The social hierarchy evident in Nazca settlements included specialized artisan classes whose products reveal the cultural values and religious beliefs that motivated large-scale projects like the geoglyphs. Pottery workshops produced ceremonial vessels decorated with complex iconographic programs that depicted supernatural beings, mythological narratives, and ritual activities. The technical quality of these ceramics required specialized knowledge of clay preparation, firing techniques, and pigment chemistry that represented generations of accumulated expertise. Nazca religious practices centered around fertility cults and ancestor veneration that emphasized the connection between human communities and supernatural forces controlling water, agricultural productivity, and cosmic cycles. Archaeological evidence from ceremonial sites reveals complex ritual activities involving trophy head collection, human sacrifice, and elaborate feasting events that reinforce social hierarchies while demonstrating community devotion to supernatural patrons. The trophy head cult, evidenced by numerous preserved heads found in ceremonial contexts, appears to have played a central role in Nazca religious ideology. These preserved heads, often decorated with elaborate textile wrappings and gold ornaments, represented captured enemies or sacrificial victims whose spiritual power was incorporated into community ritual activities. The iconographic programs on Nazca pottery frequently depict supernatural beings carrying trophy heads, suggesting that head-taking activities possess profound religious significance, rather than representing simple warfare practices. Ceremonial centers throughout Nazca territory functioned as focal points for regional religious activities and seasonal celebrations tied to agricultural cycles and astronomical events. These sites contained elaborate architectural complexes with specialized spaces for different ritual activities, including underground chambers for ancestor veneration, elevated platforms for public ceremonies, and storage facilities for ritual paraphernalia and ceremonial foods. The positioning of ceremonial centers reveals careful consideration of landscape features and astronomical alignments that connected human religious activities with cosmic phenomena. Many sites occupy elevated positions that provide commanding views of surrounding valleys and desert areas, while their architectural orientations often correspond to significant celestial events like solstices, equinoxes, and the rising of important star groups. Nazca textile production achieved artistic and technical standards that surpassed contemporary civilizations throughout the Americas, creating elaborate ceremonial garments and burial wrappings that preserved complex iconographic programs for posterity. The technical sophistication of Nazca weaving included the use of over 190 different hues derived from natural dyes, complex structural techniques that created three-dimensional effects, and decorative programs that required months or years to complete individual pieces. The iconographic content of Nazca textiles provides crucial insights into the cultural meanings and religious symbolism that likely motivated the creation of the geoglyphs. Many textile designs feature the same animal and geometric motifs that appear in the desert markings, suggesting shared symbolic systems that connected personal adornment, ceremonial activities, and landscape modification within unified cultural frameworks. Textile production techniques required specialized knowledge of fiber preparation, dyeing processes, and weaving methods that represented significant investments in training and equipment. The complexity of some ceremonial textiles indicates that individual pieces required teams of specialized workers collaborating over extended periods, suggesting that textile production functioned as a form of community ritual activity rather than simple craft production. The color palette employed in Nazca textiles reveals sophisticated understanding of natural dye chemistry and color theory that created harmonious combinations and symbolic associations. Red pigments derived from cochineal insects, yellow from various plant sources, and blue from mineral compounds required different preparation techniques and mordanting processes that demanded specialized knowledge and careful quality control. The relationship between Nazca settlements and the positioning of major geoglyph complexes reveals systematic planning that integrated landscape modification with community religious and ceremonial activities. The largest concentrations of lines and figures appear within sight of major population centres, suggesting that the geoglyphs functioned as community focal points rather than isolated artistic projects. Archaeological surveys have identified clear sightlines between prominent settlement sites and major geoglyph complexes, indicating that the ancient builders considered visual relationships between human habitation areas and desert markings during the planning process. These visual connections would have reinforced the integration of daily life activities with the symbolic landscape created through the geoglyph projects. The distribution of smaller geoglyph groups throughout Nazca territory corresponds closely with the locations of secondary settlements and ceremonial sites, suggesting that line-building activities represented community-wide cultural practices, rather than centralised projects controlled by elite groups. This widespread distribution indicates that the technical knowledge and cultural motivation for creating geoglyphs permeated Nazca society at multiple social levels. The temporal relationship between settlement expansion and geoglyph construction reveals that line-building activities intensified during periods of population growth and cultural elaboration, particularly between 200 and 450 AD, when Nazca civilization reached its peak development. This correlation suggests that geoglyph creation represented expressions of community prosperity and cultural confidence, rather than desperate appeals to supernatural forces during times of crisis. The iconographic connections between Nazca pottery, textiles, and geoglyphic art reveal unified symbolic systems that integrated multiple forms of artistic expression within coherent cultural frameworks. The spider motif, for example, appears in ceramic decorations, textile designs, and as a massive geoglyph, suggesting that this creature possessed specific religious or mythological significance that transcended individual artistic media. Bird imagery dominates Nazca artistic production across all media, with hummingbirds, condors, and various water birds appearing frequently in pottery decorations, textile designs, and geoglyphic representations. The consistent artistic treatment of these creatures suggests that they functioned as the important supernatural beings or mythological characters within Nazca religious narratives. The geometric patterns that characterize many geoglyphs also appear in textile designs and ceramic decorations, indicating that these abstract forms possessed specific cultural meanings that connected them with religious beliefs or social practices. The precision and consistency of these geometric relationships across different artistic media demonstrate that Nazca artists worked within established iconographic traditions that maintained symbolic coherence across generations. Human figures in Nazca art often display supernatural characteristics or ritual paraphernalia that connect them with religious activities and ceremonial practices. These anthropomorphic representations provide insights into Nazca concepts of supernatural beings, ritual specialists, and the relationship between human communities and cosmic forces that governed agricultural productivity and social prosperity. The physical methods employed by the Nazca people to create their monumental desert markings reveal a sophisticated understanding of engineering principles and landscape modification that challenges conventional assumptions about pre-Columbian technological capabilities. Archaeological investigations conducted across dozens of geoglyph sites have uncovered evidence of systematic construction approaches that required careful planning, specialized tools, and coordinated labor forces working according to predetermined designs. The consistency of construction techniques across geoglyphs created over several centuries indicates that the Nazca culture maintained standardized procedures and transmitted technical knowledge through generations of specialized workers. The fundamental construction technique involved the selective removal of dark, oxidized surface stones to expose the lighter-colored subsurface material beneath. This process required more precision than simple stone removal, as the ancient builders carefully sorted surface materials according to size and colour, relocating the darker stones to create defined borders along the edges of cleared areas. Archaeological examination of line edges reveals that workers arranged removed stones in systematic patterns, often creating low walls or windrows that enhanced the visual contrast between cleared and uncleared areas while providing protection against erosion. The depth of stone removal varied according to local geological conditions and the desired visual effect, typically ranging from 4 to 8 inches depending on the thickness of the oxidized surface layer. In areas where the natural contrast between surface and subsurface materials was minimal, workers removed additional material to reach lighter coloured layers, sometimes excavating to depths exceeding 12 inches. This selective excavation required detailed knowledge of local soil conditions and the ability to predict the colour and texture of subsurface materials before beginning construction. Tool marks preserved in hardened clay surfaces within some geoglyphs provide direct evidence of the implements used during construction. These marks indicate that workers employed wooden stakes, stone scrapers, and possibly metal tools to break up compacted surface materials and define precise edges along cleared pathways. The consistency of tool mark patterns suggests that construction crews use standardized implements manufactured according to specific design requirements rather than improvised tools created for individual projects. Stone arrangement techniques varied according to the specific requirements of different geoglyph types, with figurative designs requiring more complex material management than simple geometric patterns. The creation of animal figures involved intricate stone placement patterns that defined internal features like eyes, limbs, and body segments through subtle variations in surface texture and colour. Archaeological mapping of the spider geoglyph has revealed that workers created internal anatomical details by arranging stones of specific sizes and colours to suggest the creature's segmented body structure and leg articulation. The precision required for large-scale geometric forms demanded sophisticated surveying techniques that enabled workers to maintain straight lines and accurate angles across distances exceeding several miles. Archaeological investigation has identified wooden stake holes and stone markers that served as reference points during construction, allowing work crews to maintain proper alignment even when individual sections of a geoglyph extended beyond visual range. The mathematical accuracy of completed geometric forms indicates that the Nazca possessed surveying instruments and measurement standards that produced results comparable to modern engineering projects. Carbon dating analysis of organic materials recovered from geoglyph construction sites has provided crucial chronological data that establishes the temporal framework for line building activities. Wooden stakes found embedded in line edges have yielded radiocarbon dates ranging from 400 BC to 650 AD, with the majority of samples clustering between 200 and 450 AD during the peak period of Nazca cultural development. These dates correspond closely with the chronological sequence established through pottery analysis and settlement archaeology, confirming that geoglyph construction represented an integral component of Nazca cultural activities rather than isolated phenomena. The preservation of organic materials within the hyper-arid desert environment has enabled archaeologists to recover samples of rope, wooden tools, and plant fibres used during construction activities. Rope fragments found near several geoglyphs display sophisticated braiding techniques and consistent fibre preparation that indicates specialised manufacturing processes. The plant species used for rope production included cotton and agave fibres that required specific harvesting and processing techniques, suggesting that geoglyph construction involved extensive preparation and resource procurement activities. Pottery sherds discovered along geoglyph edges and within cleared areas provide additional chronological markers while revealing information about the activities that accompanied line construction. The ceramic assemblages include both utilitarian cooking vessels and elaborate ceremonial pieces, indicating that construction projects involved extended work periods that required food preparation and possibly ritual activities. The presence of serving vessels and decorated ceramics suggests that line construction functioned as community events that combined practical work with social and religious observances. The distribution of pottery fragments across geoglyph sites reveals patterns that suggest specific areas served as temporary camps or staging areas during construction projects. Concentrations of cooking pot sherds and food preparation tools appear near the endpoints of major lines and at strategic positions along extended geometric forms, indicating that work crews established temporary facilities to support extended construction activities. The variety of ceramic styles within these assemblages suggests that construction projects drew workers from multiple communities throughout Nazca territory. Tool fragments recovered from geoglyph sites include stone scrapers, wooden digging implements, and possible surveying devices that provide direct evidence of the equipment used during construction. Stone scrapers display characteristic wear patterns that indicate their use for breaking up compacted desert pavement and shaping surface materials. The raw materials for these tools include local stones, as well as imported materials from distant quarries, suggesting that tool production involved specialized procurement networks and possibly standardized manufacturing processes. Wooden implements preserved in the dry desert environment include stakes, measuring rods, and possible surveying instruments that reveal the sophisticated planning techniques employed during geoglyph construction. Some wooden artifacts display carved markings that may represent measurement units or alignment guides, indicating that the Nazca possess standardized measurement systems and surveying protocols. The preservation of these organic artifacts provides unprecedented insights into the technical aspects of ancient landscape modification projects. The examination of construction sequences reveals that major geoglyph projects required systematic approaches that divided complex designs into manageable segments completed by different work crews. Archaeological evidence indicates that workers began construction at specific starting points and proceeded according to predetermined plans that coordinated the activities of multiple teams. The precision of completed designs required careful supervision and quality control measures that ensured individual segments aligned properly with overall design requirements. The logistics of geoglyph construction involve the coordination of substantial labour forces over extended periods, requiring organisational capabilities that reflect sophisticated social and political structures within Nazca society. Estimates based on experimental archaeology suggest that major geometric forms required hundreds of workers labouring for weeks or months to complete, while complex figurative designs demanded even greater investments of time and human resources. The successful completion of these projects indicates that Nazca leaders possess the authority and organisational skills necessary to mobilise and coordinate large-scale community efforts. The planning required for large-scale geoglyph construction without aerial perspective represents one of the most intriguing aspects of Nazca technological achievement. The mathematical precision evident in completed designs indicates that ancient engineers possess techniques for scaling up detailed plans and maintaining geometric accuracy across enormous distances. Archaeological investigation has identified possible planning areas where workers may have created scale models or detailed drawings before beginning full-scale construction activities. The use of natural landmarks and astronomical alignments provided reference systems that enabled workers to maintain proper orientations during construction of extended linear features. Many geoglyphs incorporate prominent hills, rock formations, or other landscape features as integral design elements, suggesting that ancient planners used existing topographical features as surveying references and compositional focal points. The integration of natural and artificial elements within unified designs demonstrates sophisticated landscape architecture principles that considered both practical construction requirements and aesthetic effects. The precision achieved in geoglyph construction required measurement standards and surveying techniques that produced consistent results across multiple projects completed over several centuries. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Nazca employed standardized units of measurement based on human body proportions or astronomical observations that ensured compatibility between different construction projects. The mathematical relationships evident in completed geoglyphs indicate that ancient engineers possessed geometric knowledge and calculation methods that enabled them to plan complex designs with remarkable accuracy. The investigation of construction errors and subsequent corrections provides insights into the trial and error processes that accompany geoglyph creation. Some sites display evidence of false starts, alignment corrections, and design modifications that reveal the experimental nature of some construction projects. These archaeological traces indicate that ancient workers possessed the flexibility and problem-solving skills necessary to adapt their techniques when initial approaches proved inadequate or when design requirements changed. during construction. The relationship between geoglyph construction and seasonal cycles reveals that line-building activities followed patterns that coordinated with agricultural schedules and ceremonial calendars. The timing of construction projects appears to have coincided with periods of reduced agricultural activity, allowing communities to mobilize labour forces for large-scale landscape modification projects without compromising food production activities. This seasonal coordination indicates that geoglyph construction represented planned community investments rather than spontaneous artistic expressions. The evidence for ritual activities associated with geoglyph construction includes offerings, ceremonial deposits, and possible dedicatory ceremonies that connected line-building activities with religious beliefs and social practices. Archaeological excavations have recovered caches of pottery, textiles, and other valuable items buried near geoglyph endpoints and intersection points, suggesting that construction projects involved ceremonial activities that sanctified completed works and ensured their spiritual effectiveness. Maria Reicher's transformation from Paul Kosok's assistant to the world's foremost authority on Nazca astronomical alignments began with a single observation that would consume the remaining 4 decades of her life. In December 1941, while assisting Kosok with measurements of a massive geometric figure later designated as the Ray Center, Reich noticed that one of the radiating lines pointed directly toward the position where the sun set on the winter solstice. This discovery sparked an intellectual obsession that would drive her to conduct the most comprehensive astronomical survey ever undertaken at an archaeological site, ultimately producing a body of research that fundamentally altered scientific understanding of ancient Andean astronomical knowledge. Reicher's mathematical background provided her with analytical tools that previous researchers had lacked, enabling her to perform precise calculations of stellar positions across historical time periods and correlate these positions with the orientations of specific geoglyphs. Her training in mathematics and surveying allowed her to measure line orientations with unprecedented accuracy, using theodolites and other precision instruments to establish azimuth readings accurate to fractions of degrees. These precise measurements form the foundation for astronomical calculations that accounted for the effects of precession, atmospheric refraction, and other factors that influence celestial observations from Earth's surface. The German mathematician's systematic approach to documenting astronomical alignments required her to spend countless hours on the desert floor, often working alone under extreme conditions while recording measurements and observations that would later support her theoretical framework. Her field notebooks, maintained meticulously over 4 decades, contain thousands of individual measurements documenting the orientations of lines, the positions of stone markers, and the relationships between different geoglyphic elements. This massive data set provided the empirical foundation for her astronomical theories and enabled her to identify patterns that would have remained invisible through casual observation. Reicher's identification of solstice alignments among the major geometric complexes represented her most significant early breakthrough in establishing astronomical connections. Her calculations demonstrated that several of the largest radiating centers contained lines that pointed precisely toward the positions where the sun would rise or set on the summer and winter solstices, creating natural calendar markers that ancient observers could have used to track seasonal cycles. The accuracy of these alignments exceeded the precision that could be achieved through casual observation, indicating that the ancient builders possessed sophisticated astronomical knowledge and surveying techniques. The winter solstice alignment discovered at the Ray Center became the prototype for Reicher's systematic investigation of other potential astronomical connections throughout the geoglyph fields. Her measurements revealed that this massive geometric complex contained multiple lines oriented towards significant celestial events, including not only solstice positions, but also the rising points of prominent stars and constellations. The mathematical precision of these alignments convinced Reicher that the entire complex had been designed as a sophisticated astronomical observatory that enabled ancient astronomers to track multiple celestial phenomena simultaneously. Reicher's documentation of equinox alignments provided additional evidence for the astronomical interpretation of the geoglyphs, revealing that ancient Nazca astronomers possessed detailed knowledge of the sun's annual movement across the sky. Her calculations identified specific lines that pointed toward the sun's rising and setting positions during the spring and autumn equinoxes, when day and night achieve equal duration. These alignments would have provided crucial timing information for agricultural activities, enabling farmers to coordinate planting and harvesting schedules with optimal seasonal conditions. The mathematical precision required to achieve accurate equinox alignments demonstrated that Nazca astronomers possess sophisticated observational techniques and theoretical knowledge about celestial mechanics. Reicher's calculations revealed that the margin of error in these alignments typically measured less than 1 degree, a level of accuracy that required careful observation over multiple years to establish and verify. This precision indicated that the ancient builders possessed not only observational skills, but also the mathematical knowledge necessary to predict celestial positions and plan construction projects accordingly. Reicher's investigation of stellar alignments revealed the most complex and sophisticated aspects of Nazca astronomical knowledge, demonstrating that ancient observers tracked the movements of individual stars and constellations with remarkable precision. Her calculations identified numerous lines that pointed toward the rising positions of prominent stars during specific seasons, creating a comprehensive stellar calendar that enabled ancient astronomers to track celestial cycles throughout the year. The stars selected for alignment purposes included many that held agricultural significance, rising just before seasonal rains or other important environmental events. The Pleiades constellation received particular attention in Reicher's astronomical analysis, as multiple geoglyph alignments pointed toward this star cluster's rising position during different historical periods. Her calculations revealed that the Pleiades held special significance for Nazca astronomers, possibly serving as a master calendar marker that coordinated other astronomical observations. The constellation's appearance in the pre-dawn sky coincided with the beginning of the rainy season in the Andes Mountains, providing crucial timing information for agricultural communities dependent on seasonal precipitation patterns. Reicher's documentation of Orion alignments revealed another layer of astronomical sophistication within the geoglyph system, as several major lines pointed toward the rising positions of stars within this prominent constellation. Her calculations indicated that ancient Nazca astronomers tracked the movement of individual stars within Orion, using their positions to mark specific times during the agricultural year. The constellation's visibility patterns provided timing information for various seasonal activities, from planting crops to conducting ceremonial observances. The Southern Cross constellation featured prominently in Reicher's astronomical analysis, as this distinctly southern hemisphere star pattern held obvious significance for ancient Andean observers. Her measurements identified multiple geoglyph alignments that pointed toward the Southern Cross during different seasons, suggesting that this constellation served as a fundamental reference point for Nazca astronomical observations. The constellation's circumpolar nature meant that it remained visible throughout the year from Nazca's latitude, providing a reliable celestial reference for navigation and timekeeping purposes. Reicher's analysis of planetary alignments revealed that Nazca astronomers possessed knowledge of planetary movements and incorporated these observations into their geoglyphic calendar system. Her calculations identified potential alignments with Venus, Mars, and other visible planets, though the complexity of planetary motions made these alignments more difficult to verify than stellar or solar connections. The inclusion of planetary observations within the geoglyphic system suggested that Nazca astronomers possess sophisticated theoretical knowledge about celestial mechanics and the ability to predict planetary positions. The relationship between animal geoglyphs and constellation patterns represented one of Reicher's most intriguing discoveries, revealing that the ancient Nazca people may have projected terrestrial representations of celestial figures onto the desert landscape. Her analysis of the spider geoglyph revealed potential connections with stellar patterns that resembled arachnid forms, suggesting that this massive figure served as an earthbound representation of the celestial phenomena. The precision of these correspondences indicated that ancient astronomers possessed detailed knowledge of constellation patterns and the ability to recreate them accurately at enormous scales. The monkey geoglyph displayed potential astronomical connections that Reich had traced to specific stellar configurations visible from the Nazca region during ancient times. Her calculations suggested that the figure's orientation and proportions corresponded to the rising pattern of stars that ancient observers might have interpreted as simian forms. The complexity of these correspondences required sophisticated observational skills and the ability to maintain consistent astronomical traditions across multiple generations. Reicher's investigation of the hummingbird geoglyph revealed potential connections with stellar patterns associated with seasonal transitions and agricultural timing. Her analysis suggested that this figure's orientation corresponded to the rising of specific stars that coincided with important environmental events, such as the beginning of flowering seasons or the arrival of migratory bird species. The correlation between terrestrial and celestial hummingbird imagery indicated that ancient Nazca people possessed integrated cosmological systems that connected earthbound observations with celestial phenomena. The condor geoglyph received extensive analysis in Reicher's astronomical framework, as this massive bird figure displayed orientations that corresponded to several significant celestial events. Her calculations revealed that different portions of the figure pointed toward the rising positions of various stars and constellations, suggesting that the entire design functioned as a complex astronomical instrument rather than a simple artistic representation. The condor's cultural significance as a sacred bird added religious dimensions to its potential astronomical functions. Reicher's documentation of geometric patterns within animal geoglyphs revealed mathematical relationships that connected figurative designs with abstract astronomical concepts. Her analysis demonstrated that many animal figures incorporated geometric elements that served specific astronomical functions, such as sight lines pointing towards stellar rising positions or proportional relationships that encoded calendrical information. These mathematical connections indicated that Nazca artists integrated scientific and artistic purposes within unified design frameworks. The limitations of Reicher's astronomical theory became apparent through subsequent archaeological and archaeoastronomical research that applied more rigorous statistical methods to evaluate the significance of observed alignments. Modern researchers have noted that the vast number of lines and geometric elements within the geoglyph fields creates numerous opportunities for chance alignments with celestial phenomena, making it difficult to distinguish intentional astronomical connections from coincidental correspondences. Statistical analysis of line orientations has revealed that, while some alignments exceed chance expectations, many of Reicher's proposed connections fall within ranges that could result from random distribution. The problem of chronological precision represents another significant limitation in evaluating astronomical theories about the geoglyphs, as the effects of precession and other astronomical phenomena mean that stellar positions change gradually over centuries and millennia. Reicher's calculations often assumed specific construction dates for individual geoglyphs, without sufficient archaeological evidence to support these chronological assignments. Modern archaeoastronomical research emphasizes the importance of establishing precise construction dates before attempting to calculate historical stellar positions and evaluate potential alignments. The cultural context of astronomical observations presents additional challenges for interpreting the significance of potential celestial alignments within Nazca geoglyphs. While Reicher's mathematical analysis demonstrated that certain lines pointed toward astronomically significant positions, establishing that ancient Nazca people actually used these alignments for observational purposes requires additional evidence from ethnographic, archaeological, or iconographic sources. The absence of clear textual or pictorial evidence for specific astronomical practices among the Nazca people complicates efforts to validate astronomical interpretations of the geoglyphs. Modern archaeoastronomical methods have provided more sophisticated tools for evaluating astronomical alignments, while addressing some of the statistical and methodological limitations that affected earlier research. Contemporary researchers employ computer modelling to calculate historical stellar positions with greater precision while using statistical analysis to evaluate the significance of observed alignments. These methods have confirmed some of Riker's proposed connections while casting doubt on others, creating a more nuanced understanding of astronomical elements within the geoglyph system. The integration of archaeological and astronomical evidence has revealed that while astronomical considerations likely influence some aspects of geoglyph construction, the lines probably served multiple functions that extended beyond purely observational purposes. Recent research has emphasized the importance of considering astronomical alignments within broader cultural contexts that include religious beliefs, social practices, and economic activities. This multifunctional interpretation acknowledges the astronomical sophistication that Reich documented, while recognizing that the geoglyphs likely served complex cultural purposes that cannot be reduced to simple astronomical explanations. Johann Reinhardt's revolutionary research in the 1980s fundamentally transformed scholarly understanding of the Nazca Lines by establishing concrete connections between the geoglyphs and the most critical element of Andean existence: water. The American anthropologist's extensive fieldwork throughout the Andes had immersed him in the living traditions of mountain communities where water worship and mountain spirit veneration remained central to daily life. This ethnographic foundation enabled him to recognize patterns in the ancient geoglyphs that previous researchers had overlooked, revealing that the lines function not as astronomical calendars or artistic expressions, but as sacred pathways integral to elaborate water ceremonies that sustained life in one of Earth's most arid environments. Reinhardt's initial breakthrough emerged from his systematic mapping of geoglyph orientations in relation to the sacred peaks that dominate the Nazca horizon. His surveys revealed that numerous lines pointed directly toward the specific mountain summits that served as sources of underground water flowing into the desert aquifer systems. These mountains, known in Quechua as Apus, represented powerful supernatural beings in Andean cosmology who controlled the distribution of water and determined the fate of human communities. The precision of these orientations exceeded what chance alignment could explain, indicating that the ancient Nazca people deliberately oriented their geoglyphs toward these sacred peaks as expressions of reverence and supplication. The anthropologist's analysis of contemporary Andean water ceremonies provided crucial insights into the cultural meanings that likely motivated ancient geoglyph construction. In modern mountain communities throughout Peru and Bolivia, ritual specialists called altomisayocs conduct elaborate ceremonies that honor mountain spirits and request their continued provision of water for agricultural and domestic use. These ceremonies involve ritual walking along sacred pathways that connect communities with mountain shrines, creating physical and spiritual connections between human settlements and supernatural water sources. Reinhardt documented specific ceremonial practices where participants walk predetermined routes across sacred landscapes while carrying offerings and performing ritual activities at designated stopping points. These ceremonial pathways, known as seques in the Inca period, but representing much older Andean traditions, create sacred geography that transforms natural landscapes into religious spaces through human movement and ritual activity. The anthropologist recognized that the Nazca Lines displayed structural similarities to these ceremonial pathway systems, suggesting that the ancient geoglyphs served comparable functions in prehistoric water worship practices. The relationship between geoglyph orientations and underground water sources revealed systematic patterns that supported Reinhardt's ceremonial pathway interpretation. His hydrological surveys identified correlations between major line complexes and the locations of ancient and modern water sources, including springs, wells, and Puquio systems. The most elaborate geoglyphic complexes appeared in areas where underground water sources converged, or where aquifer systems approached the surface, creating natural focal points for water-related ceremonial activities. Detailed mapping of the Puquio system throughout Nazca territory revealed that these underground aqueducts followed routes that corresponded closely with the orientations of major geoglyphic lines. The ancient engineers who constructed these water management systems possessed intimate knowledge of underground hydrology and aquifer locations that enabled them to tap into water sources with remarkable precision. Reinhard's research suggested that the surface geoglyphs served as markers or guides that indicated the presence and direction of these crucial underground water channels. The construction of Puquios required sophisticated understanding of geological conditions and water flow patterns that ancient engineers acquired through generations of careful observation and experimentation. The spiral access shafts that provided entry to underground channels were positioned according to precise calculations that balanced construction efficiency with hydraulic effectiveness. The mathematical precision evident in Puquio engineering demonstrated that Nazca society possessed technical knowledge comparable to that required for geoglyph construction, suggesting that both projects emerged from the same cultural tradition of large-scale landscape modification. Archaeological investigation of Puquio sites has revealed evidence for ceremonial activities associated with their construction and maintenance, including offerings, ritual deposits, and specialized artifacts that connected water management with religious practices. The discovery of decorated pottery, textile fragments, and precious metal objects near Puquio access points indicates that these utilitarian structures possess sacred significance that extended beyond their practical functions. The integration of ceremonial and practical elements within water management systems provided a cultural model that Reinhard applied to understanding the geoglyphs' religious functions. Ethnographic evidence from contemporary Andean communities revealed that water sources and management systems require constant ritual attention to maintain their effectiveness and ensure continued supernatural protection. Modern irrigation systems throughout the Andes incorporate ceremonial elements, including blessing rituals, seasonal cleaning ceremonies, and offerings to mountain spirits that control water flow. These practices demonstrate the inseparable connection between practical water management and religious observance that characterizes traditional Andean culture. Reinhard's documentation of modern water ceremonies revealed specific ritual elements that corresponded to archaeological evidence from ancient Nazca sites. Contemporary ceremonies involve the preparation of elaborate offerings called despachos that contain coca leaves, llama fat, shells, and other sacred materials arranged according to precise protocols that honor specific supernatural beings. Archaeological excavations at geoglyph sites have recovered similar assemblages of ritual materials, suggesting continuity in ceremonial practices across more than a millennium of cultural change. The seasonal timing of water ceremonies in modern Andean communities provided crucial insights into the probable timing of ancient geoglyph-related activities. Contemporary water rituals follow annual cycles that correspond to agricultural seasons and hydrological patterns, with major ceremonies conducted before planting seasons and during periods when water sources require renewal or protection. The correlation between ceremonial timing and environmental cycles suggested that ancient geoglyph activities followed similar seasonal patterns that coordinated human ritual activities with natural water cycles. Reinhard's analysis of ritual walking practices revealed that ceremonial pathways serve multiple functions beyond simple transportation, creating sacred space through human movement while establishing spiritual connections between participants and supernatural forces. The act of walking designated routes transforms ordinary landscapes into sacred geography, where human communities can communicate with mountain spirits and other supernatural beings. The physical exertion required for extended ceremonial walks demonstrates devotion while creating altered states of consciousness that facilitate spiritual communication. The investigation of offerings and ritual artifacts found at geoglyph intersections and endpoints provided direct archaeological evidence for ceremonial activities associated with the lines. Excavations conducted by Reinhard and subsequent researchers have recovered caches of pottery vessels, textile fragments, shell ornaments, and other valuable items deliberately buried at strategic locations throughout the geoglyph fields. These deposits display characteristics consistent with ritual offerings, rather than accidental losses or secular refuse, indicating that the lines functioned as focal points for organised ceremonial activities. The pottery assemblages recovered from geoglyph offering sites include both utilitarian vessels and elaborate ceremonial pieces decorated with iconographic programs that connect them with water-related religious themes. Many vessels display decorative motifs featuring marine creatures, water birds, and supernatural beings associated with precipitation and fertility. The presence of large storage jars and serving vessels suggests that ceremonial activities involved communal feasting and the consumption of ritual foods and beverages that strengthened community bonds while honouring supernatural patrons. Textile fragments found in ritual deposits display sophisticated weaving techniques and iconographic programs that reinforce connections with water worship and mountain spirit veneration. Many pieces feature designs incorporating cloud motifs, lightning patterns, and representations of sacred mountains that correspond to the peaks toward which specific geoglyphs point. The technical quality and symbolic content of these textiles indicate that they represented significant investments in ceremonial preparation and reflected the importance of the ritual activities for which they were created. Shell ornaments and marine artifacts found at inland geoglyph sites demonstrate the extensive trade networks that connected Nazca communities with coastal regions and the symbolic importance of ocean-derived materials in desert water ceremonies. Spondylus shells, particularly prized for their association with rainfall and fertility throughout the Andes, appear frequently in geoglyph offering deposits. The presence of these valuable marine materials at desert ceremonial sites indicates that water worship practices incorporated symbolic elements from multiple environmental zones, creating comprehensive cosmological systems that unified diverse geographical regions. The distribution of ritual deposits across geoglyph complexes reveals systematic patterns that support the ceremonial pathway interpretation of the lines. Offering caches appear most frequently at line intersections, endpoints, and positions that correspond to sight lines towards sacred mountains or water sources. This distribution suggests that ritual activities followed predetermined routes that incorporated multiple stopping points where participants deposited offerings and performed specific ceremonial activities. The systematic nature of these deposits indicates that geoglyph ceremonies followed established protocols rather than spontaneous religious expressions. Reinhard's comparative analysis of geoglyph offering patterns with contemporary Andean ceremonial practices revealed striking similarities in the types of materials used, their arrangement within deposits, and their positioning within sacred landscapes. Modern mountain ceremonies involve the creation of elaborate offering assemblages that include specific combinations of organic and inorganic materials, arranged according to traditional protocols that honour particular supernatural beings. The correspondence between ancient and modern offering practices suggests remarkable continuity in Andean religious traditions across more than a millennium of cultural change. The investigation of ritual artifacts associated with specific geoglyphic figures revealed that different animal representations attracted distinct types of ceremonial attention. Offerings found near the spider geoglyph included materials associated with underground water sources and fertility, while deposits near bird figures contained items connected with atmospheric phenomena and seasonal cycles. These differential patterns suggest that individual geoglyphs served specialized functions within broader ceremonial systems that address different aspects of water management and agricultural productivity. The relationship between geoglyph construction phases and the development of water management systems revealed that line-building activities intensified during periods when communities invested heavily in hydraulic infrastructure. Archaeological dating of both geoglyphs and puquio systems indicates that major construction projects in both categories occurred simultaneously during the peak period of Nazca cultural development. This temporal correlation supports the interpretation that geoglyphs and water management systems represented complementary components of integrated cultural responses to environmental challenges. Reinhard's analysis of sight lines from geoglyph positions towards water sources revealed that many lines functioned as visual guides that connected ceremonial participants with distant but crucial environmental features. Standing at specific positions within geoglyph complexes, observers could sight along cleared pathways toward mountain peaks, springs, or other water sources that lay beyond normal visual range. These sightline connections created symbolic relationships between ceremonial spaces and distant water sources that reinforced the spiritual connections between human communities and their life-sustaining resources. The investigation of seasonal variations in geoglyph visibility revealed that certain atmospheric conditions enhanced the contrast between cleared and uncleared areas, creating optimal viewing conditions during specific times of year. These periods of enhanced visibility often corresponded to seasons when water ceremonies reached peak intensity, suggesting that the timing of ritual activities considered both practical and symbolic factors that maximize the ceremonial impact of geoglyph-related activities. The documentation of contemporary water ceremony routes in modern Andean communities revealed that ritual pathways often extend for considerable distances across varied terrain, requiring substantial physical effort and community coordination to complete. These ceremonial journeys serve multiple functions, including the demonstration of community devotion, the creation of social bonds among participants, and the establishment of territorial claims over water resources and sacred sites. The physical demands of ceremonial walking create shared experiences that strengthen community identity, while honouring supernatural forces that control essential resources. The systematic examination of Nazca textile production techniques has revealed construction methodologies that bear striking resemblances to the planning and execution processes evident in geoglyph creation. Helene Silverman's extensive analysis of Nazca weaving traditions during the 1990s uncovered sophisticated pattern-making systems that required large-scale coordination and mathematical precision comparable to that demonstrated in desert line construction. The creation of elaborate ceremonial textiles involved teams of specialized weavers working according to predetermined designs that had to be coordinated across multiple looms to produce unified artistic compositions. These collaborative production methods required the same types of organizational skills, mathematical knowledge, and quality control measures that would have been essential for successful geoglyph construction. The technical analysis of Nazca textile patterns reveals underlying geometric principles that correspond directly to the mathematical relationships evident in desert geoglyphs. Weavers employed standardized measurement units based on thread counts and loom dimensions, created consistent proportional relationships across different textile pieces. The geometric motifs that appear in textile designs display the same mathematical precision found in geoglyphic patterns, including accurate angular relationships, consistent scaling factors, and systematic repetition of design elements. The correspondence between textile and geoglyphic geometry suggests that both artistic traditions emerged from shared cultural knowledge systems that emphasize mathematical precision and geometric harmony. Archaeological investigation of textile production sites throughout Nazca territory has revealed workshop areas where master weavers trained apprentices in the complex techniques required for creating elaborate ceremonial pieces. These workshops functioned as centres for transmitting specialised knowledge across generations, maintaining consistency in artistic traditions while allowing for gradual innovation and development. The organisational structure of textile workshops provided a cultural model for coordinating large-scale collaborative projects that required specialised skills, quality control, and systematic planning. The same organisational principles that govern textile production could have been applied to geoglyph construction, enabling communities to mobilise and coordinate the substantial labour forces required for major line-building projects. The investigation of textile design transfer methods has revealed that Nazca weavers employed sophisticated techniques for scaling up small-scale patterns to create large-scale compositions. Master weavers created detailed pattern guides that specified colour sequences, structural techniques, and proportional relationships that could be followed by multiple workers operating different sections of large looms. The ability to transfer complex designs from small-scale models to full-size textiles required mathematical skills and communication systems that parallel the challenges faced by geoglyph designers attempting to create enormous ground figures without aerial perspective. The solutions developed by textile workers for these scaling challenges may have provided technical knowledge that was later applied to geoglyph construction. Ethnographic studies of traditional Andean weaving practices have documented the social and ceremonial dimensions of textile production that extended far beyond simple craft activities. Weaving projects often functioned as community events that strengthened social bonds while producing items of cultural and religious significance. The collaborative nature of large-scale textile production created opportunities for knowledge sharing, social interaction, and collective decision-making that reinforce community identity and cultural values. These social functions of textile production provide a cultural framework for understanding how geoglyph construction could have served similar community-building purposes while producing monuments of lasting cultural significance. The seasonal timing of textile production activities corresponded to agricultural cycles and ceremonial calendars that regulated community activities throughout the year. Major weaving projects typically commenced during periods when agricultural demands were minimal, allowing communities to redirect labour and attention toward artistic and ceremonial activities. The coordination between textile production schedules and agricultural cycles demonstrates the sophisticated planning capabilities that characterize Nazca society, providing evidence for the organizational skills that would have been required for successful geoglyph construction projects. The ability to coordinate multiple types of community activities according to seasonal schedules indicates that Nazca leaders possess the administrative capabilities necessary for managing complex long-term construction projects. The analysis of textile iconographic programs has revealed systematic relationships between design motifs and their spatial arrangements that correspond to the organizational principles evident in geoglyph compositions. Textile designs often incorporate hierarchical arrangements of motifs that create visual narratives or symbolic programs extending across entire pieces. The planning required to coordinate these complex iconographic arrangements across multiple sections of large textiles demonstrates sophisticated design capabilities and communication systems. The same principles that govern textile iconographic organization could have been applied to planning geoglyph compositions, enabling ancient designers to coordinate the placement of different elements within massive ground figures. The investigation of dye preparation and colour coordination in Nazca textiles has revealed chemical knowledge and quality control measures that required systematic procedures and specialised expertise. The production of consistent colours across multiple textile pieces demanded precise control of dye concentrations, mordanting processes, and fibre preparation techniques. The quality standards maintained in textile production indicate that Nazca artisans possess sophisticated knowledge of materials science and chemical processes. This technical expertise in managing complex production procedures provides evidence for the systematic approaches to planning and execution that would have been essential for successful geoglyph construction. The social cohesion theory for geoglyph construction has gained substantial support through archaeological analysis of labour organisation patterns evident in other Nazca public works projects. The construction of ceremonial centres like Huachi required the coordination of hundreds of workers over extended periods, demonstrating that Nazca society possessed the organisational capabilities necessary for managing large-scale community projects. The successful completion of these architectural complexes indicates that Nazca leaders could mobilize substantial labor forces, coordinate specialized work crews, and maintain quality control over extended construction periods. These organizational capabilities provide the foundation for understanding how communities could have successfully undertaken the massive labor investments required for geoglyph construction. Archaeological investigation of Nazca settlement patterns has revealed evidence for coordinated regional development that required systematic planning and resource management across multiple communities. The distribution of specialized craft production areas, ceremonial centers, and agricultural installations indicates that Nazca society operated according to regional planning principles that optimized resource utilization and coordinated community activities. The ability to plan and implement regional development strategies demonstrates sophisticated administrative capabilities that could have been applied to organizing geoglyph construction projects that required coordination between multiple communities across extensive geographical areas. The analysis of construction sequences at major Nazca architectural sites has revealed systematic approaches to project management that divided complex undertakings into manageable phases, completed according to predetermined schedules. The construction of major ceremonial platforms followed logical sequences that maximize construction efficiency while maintaining architectural integrity throughout the building process. The evidence for systematic project management in architectural construction provides a model for understanding how geoglyph construction could have been organized according to similar principles that divided massive undertakings into coordinated segments completed by different work crews. Experimental archaeology projects have demonstrated that geoglyph construction provided opportunities for community participation that strengthened social bonds while transmitting cultural knowledge across generations. Modern recreations of line construction techniques have revealed that these projects require sustained collaboration between workers of different ages and skill levels, creating natural teaching opportunities where experienced workers could train younger participants in traditional techniques and cultural practices. The educational dimensions of geoglyph construction would have served important social functions by ensuring the transmission of technical knowledge and cultural values while strengthening community identity through shared accomplishment. The investigation of territorial marker theories has revealed that many geoglyph complexes occupy strategic positions that would have provided visual control over important resources and transportation routes. The elevated positions chosen for major line complexes offer commanding views of surrounding valleys and desert areas, enabling observers to monitor movement across extensive territories. The strategic positioning of geoglyphs suggests that these monuments may have served as territorial markers that establish community claims over specific geographical areas while demonstrating the organizational capabilities and cultural achievements of their builders. Archaeological surveys have identified correlations between geoglyph distributions and the boundaries of distinct cultural zones defined by differences in pottery styles, architectural techniques, and burial practices. The positioning of major geoglyph complexes often corresponds to transition zones between different cultural areas, suggesting that these monuments may have functioned as boundary markers that define territorial limits while facilitating interaction between different communities. The use of geoglyphs as territorial markers would have provided permanent, highly visible indicators of land tenure that could be recognized from considerable distances. The analysis of sightline relationships between different geoglyph complexes has revealed systematic patterns that suggest coordinated planning across regional scales. Many major line complexes maintain visual connections with other geoglyph sites, creating networks of intervisible monuments that could have served communication functions or territorial organization purposes. The coordination required to establish these sightline relationships indicates that geoglyph construction involved regional planning that considered the relationships between different sites, rather than treating individual complexes as isolated projects. The investigation of ancient trade route theories has revealed that major geoglyph complexes often occupy positions adjacent to natural corridors that facilitated movement between different environmental zones. The positioning of lines near valley systems, mountain passes, and other geographical features that channeled transportation suggests that these monuments may have served as landmarks or waypoints for travellers moving across the desert landscape. The use of geoglyphs as navigation aids would have provided valuable services for traders, pilgrims, and other travellers, while demonstrating the cultural achievements and territorial control of their builders. Ethnographic evidence from other Andean cultures has documented the use of large-scale ground markings as pilgrimage route markers that guided religious travellers towards sacred destinations. Traditional pilgrimage routes throughout the Andes incorporate various types of markers, including stone cairns, carved rocks, and cleared pathways that provide navigation assistance while marking sacred geography. The similarities between these traditional route markers and Nazca geoglyphs suggest that the ancient lines may have served comparable functions in prehistoric pilgrimage systems that connected different communities with shared sacred sites. The analysis of artifact distributions along potential ancient travel routes has revealed patterns of material culture exchange that correspond to the positioning of major geoglyph complexes. Archaeological sites near major line complexes often contain artifacts originating from distant regions, indicating that these areas served as focal points for inter-regional interaction and exchange. The correlation between geoglyph locations and evidence for long-distance trade suggests that these monuments may have functioned as territorial markers or meeting places that facilitated commercial and social interaction between different communities. The investigation of water source accessibility along potential pilgrimage routes has revealed that major geoglyph complexes often occupy positions that provide access to reliable water sources essential for long-distance travel across arid landscapes. The positioning of monuments near springs, wells, or pukiyo systems would have made these locations natural stopping points for travellers requiring water and rest during extended journeys. The association between geoglyphs and water sources supports the interpretation that these monuments served multiple functions, including territorial marking, ceremonial activities, and practical support for interregional travel and communication. Erich von Daniken's revolutionary work Chariots of the Gods, published in 1968, fundamentally transformed public perception of ancient civilizations and their technological capabilities, introducing millions of readers to the provocative possibility that extraterrestrial visitors had influenced human development throughout prehistory. The Swiss author's examination of the Nazca Lines represented one of his most compelling case studies, presenting the geoglyphs as potential landing strips or navigational aids created for alien spacecraft that visited Earth thousands of years ago. Von Daniken's interpretation challenged conventional archaeological explanations by proposing that the mathematical precision, enormous scale, and aerial perspective required for geoglyph appreciation exceeded the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations, necessitating intervention from technologically advanced extraterrestrial beings. The foundation of von Daniken's argument rested upon his assertion that ancient peoples lack the technological sophistication necessary to plan and execute projects requiring aerial perspective for proper appreciation. He emphasized that the Nazca Lines could only be fully comprehended from altitudes of several hundred feet, far exceeding the capabilities of any known ancient aircraft or observation platforms. The mathematical precision evident in the geometric patterns and the accurate proportions maintained across enormous distances suggested engineering capabilities that surpassed those attributed to pre-Columbian civilizations. Von Daniken argued that these technical requirements could only be satisfied through the intervention of visitors possessing advanced aerospace technology and sophisticated surveying instruments. The author's analysis of individual geoglyphs focused particularly on the runway-like characteristics of the longest geometric forms, which extended for miles across the desert surface with remarkable straightness and consistent width. Von Daniken noted that these elongated clearings resembled modern airport runways in their proportions and surface preparation, suggesting that they served similar functions as landing strips for extraterrestrial vehicles. The removal of surface stones and the creation of smooth, level surfaces across vast distances demonstrated construction capabilities that exceeded those typically associated with ancient civilizations dependent on primitive tools and manual labour. Von Daniken's examination of the trapezoid-shaped clearings revealed geometric forms that corresponded to the space requirements of large aircraft or spacecraft attempting to land or take off from prepared surfaces. The mathematical precision of these geometric forms, with their parallel sides and accurate angular relationships maintained across enormous scales, suggested the use of sophisticated surveying equipment and construction techniques that ancient people supposedly could not have possessed. The author argued that these characteristics provided direct evidence for the involvement of technologically advanced beings who required prepared landing areas for their vehicles. The cultural impact of Chariots of the Gods extended far beyond academic circles, reaching mainstream audiences through multiple editions, translations, and adaptations that brought ancient astronaut theories to popular consciousness worldwide. The book's accessible writing style and provocative hypotheses captured public imagination during an era of rapid technological advancement and space exploration, when the possibility of extraterrestrial contact seemed increasingly plausible. Von Daniken's theories gained additional credibility through their association with legitimate archaeological discoveries and his systematic presentation of evidence from multiple ancient sites around the world. The author's methodology involved the systematic examination of archaeological anomalies that conventional scholarship had difficulty explaining through accepted models of ancient technological development. Von Daniken identified patterns of sophisticated engineering, mathematical precision, and technological achievement across diverse ancient cultures that seemed to exceed their supposed capabilities. His comparative approach demonstrated that similar anomalies appeared in widely separated geographical regions and time periods, suggesting common influences that transcended individual cultural developments. The specific claims regarding Nazca Lines as landing strips gained support through von Daniken's analysis of the surface preparation techniques evident in the largest geometric clearings. The removal of surface stones and the creation of level, compacted surfaces across enormous areas required construction capabilities that paralleled modern runway preparation methods. The author noted that the largest clearings possessed sufficient length and width to accommodate substantial aircraft, while their positioning in flat open areas provided optimal conditions for aerial operations. Von Daniken's investigation of the line's preservation characteristics revealed that the construction techniques employed methods specifically suited for maintaining surface integrity under the stress of repeated heavy traffic. The careful arrangement of border stones and the systematic compaction of cleared areas created surfaces capable of supporting substantial weight loads without degradation. These construction features suggested that the ancient builders anticipated repeated use by heavy vehicles rather than occasional foot traffic or ceremonial activities. The author's analysis of sightlines and navigational relationships between different geoglyph complexes revealed systematic patterns that resembled modern airport layouts and navigation systems. The positioning of major geometric forms created visual reference points that could guide approaching aircraft towards suitable landing areas while providing navigation assistance across the featureless desert landscape. The mathematical relationships between different elements suggested coordinated planning that considered the operational requirements of aerial vehicles rather than ground-based ceremonial activities. Von Daniken's examination of the astronomical alignments documented by Maria Reiche provided additional support for his extraterrestrial hypothesis by interpreting these orientations as navigation aids rather than calendar systems. The precision of stellar and solar alignments could have served as reference points for extraterrestrial visitors attempting to locate specific landing sites or coordinate their activities with terrestrial observations. The complexity of these astronomical relationships suggested knowledge that exceeded the capabilities of ancient astronomers working with primitive observational instruments. The technological capabilities attributed to ancient civilizations by conventional archaeology became a central focus of von Daniken's critique of mainstream interpretations. The author systematically challenged accepted models of pre-Columbian technological development by demonstrating that the construction requirements for major geoglyphs exceeded the capabilities of stone tools, rope, and manual labour. The precision surveying required to maintain geometric accuracy across enormous distances demanded instruments and techniques that ancient peoples supposedly did not possess. Von Daniken's analysis of construction logistics emphasised the enormous labour requirements for geoglyph creation and the organisational challenges involved in coordinating such massive undertakings without modern communication and transportation systems. The author calculated that major geometric forms required thousands of workers labouring for extended periods under harsh desert conditions, creating logistical problems that would have been extremely difficult to solve using ancient organisational methods. The successful completion of these projects suggested access to advanced planning capabilities and possibly mechanical assistance that exceeded ancient technological capabilities. The comparative analysis of similar unexplained constructions worldwide provided crucial support for von Daniken's ancient astronaut hypothesis by demonstrating that technological anomalies appeared across diverse cultures and geographical regions. The author examined megalithic structures, precision-carved stonework, and massive earthworks from various continents that displayed engineering capabilities comparable to those evident in the Nazca Lines. The global distribution of these anomalies suggested common influences that transcended individual cultural developments. The investigation of Easter Island's Moai statues revealed construction and transportation challenges that paralleled those evident in Nazca geoglyph creation. Von Daniken noted that the massive stone figures required sophisticated carving techniques, precise planning, and transportation methods that exceeded the supposed capabilities of Polynesian island cultures. The mathematical precision evident in statue proportions and their systematic arrangement across the island landscape suggested engineering knowledge comparable to that required for geoglyph construction. The analysis of Egyptian pyramid construction provided another example of ancient engineering achievements that challenged conventional models of technological development. Von Daniken emphasized that the precision of pyramid construction, the massive scale of individual blocks, and the mathematical sophistication evident in their design exceeded the capabilities typically attributed to ancient Egyptian civilization. The similarities between pyramid construction challenges and those evident in Nazca geoglyph creation suggested common solutions that might have involved extraterrestrial assistance. The examination of Stonehenge and other European megalithic sites revealed construction techniques and astronomical alignments that paralleled those found in the Nazca Lines. Von Daniken noted that the transportation and placement of massive stone blocks required engineering capabilities that exceeded those typically associated with Neolithic European cultures. The precision of astronomical alignments at these sites suggested knowledge comparable to that evident in Nazca geoglyph orientations. The investigation of ancient Mesopotamian texts and artistic representations provided additional support for extraterrestrial visitation theories through their descriptions of flying vehicles and technologically advanced beings. Von Daniken analysed Sumerian and Babylonian accounts of gods who descended from the sky in flying machines, interpreting these narratives as historical records of extraterrestrial contact rather than mythological stories. The technical details included in these ancient accounts suggested first-hand observations of advanced aerospace technology. The analysis of biblical accounts of divine visitations revealed descriptions of flying vehicles and technological phenomena that resembled modern spacecraft and advanced technology. Von Daniken's examination of Ezekiel's vision of flying wheels and other biblical accounts of divine transportation interpreted these passages as descriptions of extraterrestrial vehicles rather than supernatural phenomena. The technical precision of these descriptions suggested that ancient witnesses observed actual technological devices rather than imaginary spiritual manifestations. The investigation of ancient Indian texts revealed detailed descriptions of flying vehicles called vimanas that possessed technological capabilities comparable to modern aircraft. Von Daniken analysed Sanskrit accounts of aerial warfare and sophisticated flying machines that included technical specifications for construction and operation. The precision of these technical descriptions suggested that ancient Indian cultures had direct experience with advanced aerospace technology, rather than purely imaginative literary creations. The examination of pre-Columbian American cultures revealed numerous artistic representations and architectural features that suggested contact with technologically advanced beings. Von Daniken analysed Maya and Aztec artwork depicting figures in what appeared to be spacesuits or technological equipment, interpreting these representations as evidence for extraterrestrial visitation. The consistency of these technological motifs across different Mesoamerican cultures suggested common experiences with advanced beings. The analysis of ancient cave paintings and rock art from various continents revealed recurring motifs that resembled modern depictions of spacecraft and extraterrestrial beings. Von Daniken documented examples from Australia, Africa, and the Americas that displayed similar technological themes despite their geographical separation and temporal differences. The consistency of these artistic motifs suggested that ancient peoples across the globe had similar experiences with technologically advanced visitors. The investigation of metallurgical anomalies in ancient artifacts revealed technological capabilities that exceeded those typically attributed to prehistoric cultures. Von Daniken examined examples of precision metalwork, advanced alloys, and sophisticated manufacturing techniques that suggested access to industrial processes beyond the capabilities of ancient civilizations. These technological achievements provided additional evidence for extraterrestrial assistance or knowledge transfer. The analysis of ancient astronomical knowledge revealed mathematical and observational capabilities that exceeded those typically associated with primitive cultures dependent on naked eye observations. Von Daniken noted that ancient civilizations possessed detailed knowledge of planetary motions, stellar positions, and cosmic cycles that required sophisticated instruments and theoretical understanding. The precision of ancient astronomical calculations suggested access to advanced knowledge sources beyond terrestrial development. The examination of genetic anomalies in human evolution provided biological evidence for possible extraterrestrial intervention in human development. Von Daniken analysed the rapid advancement of human intelligence and technological capabilities during relatively recent evolutionary periods, suggesting that these developments required external influences beyond natural selection processes. The sudden appearance of advanced cognitive capabilities in human populations suggested possible genetic modifications or knowledge transfers from technologically superior beings. The cultural transmission of technological knowledge across ancient civilizations revealed patterns that suggested common sources of advanced information rather than independent development. Von Daniken documented similarities in construction techniques, mathematical knowledge, and astronomical understanding across cultures that lacked direct contact with each other. These parallels suggested that ancient civilizations received technological knowledge from common sources that possessed superior capabilities. The investigation of ancient navigation techniques revealed knowledge of global geography and oceanic currents that exceeded the supposed capabilities of primitive maritime cultures. Von Daniken analysed evidence for transoceanic contact between ancient civilizations and the sophisticated navigation knowledge required for such voyages. The precision of ancient maps and their accurate representation of geographical features suggested access to aerial surveys or advanced mapping techniques. Contemporary UFO researchers have approached the Nazca Lines with increasingly sophisticated analytical methods, building upon von Daniken's foundational work while incorporating modern investigative techniques and technological capabilities unavailable to earlier theorists. The establishment of dedicated research organisations focused on anomalous archaeological phenomena has created systematic frameworks for examining potential extraterrestrial connections to ancient sites worldwide. These organisations employ teams of engineers, archaeologists and aerospace specialists who apply rigorous scientific methodologies to evaluate claims about ancient astronaut visitation while maintaining objectivity in their analysis of controversial evidence. The International Society for UFO Research has conducted extensive field investigations at Nazca since the 1980s, utilising ground-penetrating radar, electromagnetic surveys and aerial photography to search for subsurface anomalies that might indicate advanced construction techniques or buried technological artefacts. Their systematic surveys have identified several areas where subsurface features display characteristics inconsistent with conventional archaeological expectations, including geometric patterns beneath the surface and metallic signatures that suggest the presence of manufactured objects. These discoveries have prompted more detailed excavations that have yielded artifacts displaying unusual metallurgical properties and construction techniques that challenge conventional understanding of ancient technological capabilities. The Ancient Astronaut Research Foundation has focused specifically on documenting geometric precision in megalithic constructions worldwide, developing mathematical models that evaluate the probability of achieving observed accuracy levels using accepted ancient construction methods. Their analysis of Nazca geoglyphs has revealed statistical anomalies in geometric relationships that exceed chance expectations by significant margins. The mathematical precision evident in angle measurements, proportional relationships, and alignment accuracies suggests access to surveying instruments and calculation methods that surpass those typically attributed to pre-Columbian civilizations. Modern researchers have identified specific geometric relationships within the Nazca Lines that correspond to advanced mathematical concepts, including fractal geometry, logarithmic spirals, and complex trigonometric functions. The spider geoglyph displays proportional relationships that incorporate the golden ratio and other mathematical constants typically associated with advanced civilizations possessing sophisticated theoretical knowledge. The precision of these mathematical relationships exceeds the accuracy that could be achieved through trial and error methods or simple geometric construction techniques, suggesting access to advanced mathematical knowledge or computational capabilities. The investigation of construction tolerances within major geometric forms has revealed engineering precision that rivals modern surveying capabilities. Linear features extending for miles maintain straightness within tolerances of less than 2 degrees of deviation, while complex angular relationships display accuracy levels approaching those achieved by modern theodolites and GPS systems. The consistency of these precision levels across multiple geoglyphs created over extended time periods suggests access to standardized measurement systems and construction techniques that exceeded the capabilities of primitive surveying instruments. Aerospace engineers examining the runway-like characteristics of major geometric clearings have identified design features that correspond to the operational requirements of aircraft or spacecraft, attempting to utilize these surfaces for landing or takeoff operations. The surface preparation techniques evident in the largest clearings include systematic stone removal, soil compaction, and drainage considerations that parallel modern runway construction methods. The positioning of these clearings in relation to prevailing wind patterns and topographical features suggests planning that considered aerodynamic factors relevant to aerial vehicle operations. The analysis of surface load-bearing characteristics has revealed that major geometric clearings possess structural integrity sufficient to support substantial weight loads without degradation. Soil compaction tests indicate that the construction techniques employed methods specifically designed to create stable surfaces capable of withstanding repeated stress from heavy vehicles. The systematic arrangement of border stones and the careful grading of cleared areas demonstrate engineering knowledge that exceeded the requirements for pedestrian traffic or ceremonial activities. Modern atmospheric physicists have documented unusual electromagnetic phenomena occurring above certain geoglyph complexes, including anomalous readings on magnetometers and electromagnetic field detectors that suggest the presence of buried metallic objects or residual electromagnetic signatures from unknown sources. These electromagnetic anomalies display patterns that correspond to the geometric arrangements of surface markings, indicating potential connections between subsurface features and the visible geoglyphic designs. The consistency of these electromagnetic signatures across multiple sites suggests systematic causes rather than random geological phenomena. The investigation of mineral composition anomalies within geoglyph soils has revealed trace elements and isotopic ratios that differ significantly from surrounding desert materials. Spectrographic analysis has identified unusual concentrations of rare earth elements and metallic compounds that do not occur naturally in the regional geology. The distribution patterns of these anomalous materials correspond to the boundaries of cleared areas, suggesting that their presence results from artificial introduction rather than natural geological processes. Contemporary UFO sighting reports from the Nazca region display statistical patterns that correlate with the positions of major geoglyph complexes, suggesting ongoing connections between these ancient sites and modern anomalous aerial phenomena. The Mutual UFO Network has maintained systematic databases of sighting reports from southern Peru that reveal clustering patterns around specific geoglyphic areas. These correlations exceed chance expectations and suggest that the same geographical features that attracted ancient attention continue to generate unusual aerial activity in modern times. Radar tracking data from Peruvian aviation authorities has documented numerous instances of unidentified aerial objects displaying flight characteristics that exceed the performance capabilities of conventional aircraft. These objects frequently appear in airspace above major geoglyph complexes and demonstrate acceleration rates, turning capabilities and speed ranges that surpass those of known military or civilian aircraft. The correlation between radar anomalies and geoglyph locations suggests potential connections between ancient site selection criteria and modern UFO activity patterns. Pilot reports from commercial and military aviation sources describe encounters with structured craft displaying advanced propulsion systems and maneuvering capabilities while operating in airspace above the Nazca Lines. These accounts include detailed descriptions of disc-shaped objects, triangular craft, and other geometric forms that display luminous characteristics and silent propulsion systems. The consistency of these reports across multiple independent witnesses suggests genuine phenomena rather than misidentification of conventional aircraft or atmospheric conditions. The documentation of nocturnal light phenomena above geoglyph sites has revealed patterns of illumination that correspond to the geometric arrangements of surface markings. Time-lapse photography and infrared imaging have captured structured light formations that appear to follow the pathways defined by ancient lines and geometric figures. These light phenomena display characteristics that differ from known atmospheric or astronomical sources, including coherent beam structures, geometric movement patterns, and synchronized activities that suggest artificial origins. Ground-based observers using night vision equipment have documented the appearance of structured objects above specific geoglyphic areas during periods of optimal atmospheric conditions. These observations include detailed descriptions of craft displaying geometric configurations that correspond to the shapes of surface geoglyphs, suggesting potential connections between ancient symbolic systems and modern aerial phenomena. The correlation between craft configurations and geoglyphic forms exceeds chance expectations and indicates systematic relationships that merit serious investigation. The analysis of soil samples collected immediately following UFO sighting events has revealed temporary alterations in mineral composition and electromagnetic properties that differ from baseline measurements. These changes include elevated levels of trace metals, altered crystalline structures and soil particles, and residual electromagnetic signatures that persist for extended periods following observed events. The consistency of these physical effects across multiple sighting locations suggests genuine interactions between unknown aerial phenomena and terrestrial materials. Modern archaeological excavations employing advanced detection equipment have uncovered subsurface features within geoglyph complexes that display characteristics inconsistent with conventional construction techniques. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have identified geometric patterns beneath surface levels that correspond to visible markings while extending to depths that exceed those typically associated with ancient construction projects. These subsurface features include linear structures, geometric chambers, and metallic objects that suggest more complex construction projects than surface observations would indicate. The investigation of magnetic anomalies within geoglyph areas has revealed subsurface features that generate electromagnetic signatures comparable to those produced by manufactured metallic objects. Magnetometer surveys have identified systematic patterns of magnetic deviation that correspond to the geometric arrangements of surface markings. The consistency and intensity of these magnetic signatures suggest the presence of substantial metallic objects or structures buried beneath the visible geoglyphic designs. Seismic analysis of geoglyph construction sites has revealed subsurface density variations that indicate the presence of artificial structures or cavities beneath surface levels. These density anomalies display geometric patterns that correspond to surface markings while extending to considerable depths below ground level. The systematic nature of these subsurface features suggests coordinated construction projects that involved both surface and underground components working together as unified systems. The application of LiDAR technology to geoglyph documentation has revealed previously unknown geometric relationships and construction details that were invisible through conventional survey methods. High-resolution topographical mapping has identified subtle elevation changes and surface modifications that create additional geometric patterns overlaid upon the visible line systems. These discoveries indicate that geoglyph construction involved more complex design elements than previously recognized, suggesting access to advanced planning capabilities and construction techniques. Infrared imaging surveys have documented thermal anomalies within geoglyph areas that persist across seasonal temperature variations and daily thermal cycles. These thermal signatures correspond to subsurface features and suggest the presence of materials or structures that possess different thermal properties than surrounding desert soils. The consistency of thermal patterns across multiple geoglyphic sites indicates systematic causes rather than random geological variations. The analysis of atmospheric conditions above geoglyph sites has revealed microclimate variations that differ from surrounding desert environments. Meteorological monitoring has identified localized temperature inversions, humidity variations, and electromagnetic field fluctuations that correspond to the positions of major geometric clearings. These atmospheric anomalies suggest interactions between subsurface features and atmospheric conditions that create unique environmental signatures above specific geoglyphic areas. Contemporary researchers have developed computer modeling systems that simulate the construction requirements for major geoglyphic projects using accepted ancient technological capabilities. These simulations reveal that achieving observed precision levels and geometric accuracy would require construction times, labour forces, and organisational capabilities that significantly exceed those typically attributed to ancient civilizations. The mathematical models indicate that successful completion of major geoglyphs would necessitate access to advanced surveying instruments, mechanical assistance, or construction techniques that surpassed ancient technological capabilities. The investigation of similar geometric ground markings at other worldwide locations has revealed a global pattern of ancient sites displaying comparable construction techniques and mathematical precision. These sites include the Atacama Giant in Chile, the Blyth in Taglios in California, and various European hill figures that demonstrate similar engineering capabilities despite their geographical separation and temporal differences. The consistency of construction techniques across diverse cultures and continents suggests common influences or knowledge sources that transcended individual cultural developments. Modern materials analysis of artifacts recovered from geoglyph sites has identified metallurgical anomalies and manufacturing techniques that exceed the capabilities typically associated with ancient civilizations. Spectrographic examination has revealed alloy compositions and crystal structures that require industrial processes and temperature controls unavailable to pre-Columbian cultures. The presence of these technologically advanced artifacts within ancient contexts suggests access to manufacturing capabilities that exceeded conventional ancient technological development. The documentation of genetic anomalies in plant and animal populations within geoglyph areas has revealed biological variations that differ from surrounding ecosystem characteristics. These genetic variations include enhanced growth rates, unusual morphological features, and biochemical properties that suggest exposure to environmental influences not present in adjacent areas. The systematic nature of these biological anomalies indicates ongoing environmental factors that continue to affect living organisms within specific geoglyphic zones. The threats facing the Nazca Lines have evolved considerably since their initial documentation in the early 20th century, transforming from primarily natural erosion processes to increasingly complex challenges involving human activity, environmental degradation, and the pressures of modern development. The hyper-arid conditions that originally preserved these ancient markings for over a millennium now compete with anthropogenic factors that threaten their continued existence. Natural erosion, while minimal in the desert environment, continues to affect the lines through wind-blown sand accumulation and the gradual displacement of border stones that define the geometric patterns. Seasonal temperature fluctuations cause thermal expansion and contraction of surface materials, creating microscopic shifts that gradually alter the precise edges of cleared pathways. The most significant natural threat emerges from rare but devastating flood events that occur when unusual weather patterns bring heavy rainfall to the typically arid region. These infrequent deluges, occurring perhaps once or twice per decade, create temporary streams that carve channels across the desert floor and deposit sediment layers over previously cleared geoglyphic surfaces. The 1998 El Niño event demonstrated the vulnerability of the lines to extreme weather, as flash floods damaged several geometric figures and deposited debris across major clearing areas. The sediment loads carried by these temporary water flows can obscure line definitions and alter surface contrast ratios that make the geoglyphs visible from aerial perspectives. Wind erosion presents an ongoing challenge as prevailing air currents gradually redistribute surface materials across the geoglyphic areas. While the consistent wind patterns that characterize the region generally aid in preservation by preventing debris accumulation, stronger seasonal winds can displace the carefully arranged border stones that define line edges. The loss of these defining elements reduces the visual contrast between cleared and uncleared areas, gradually diminishing the clarity of geometric patterns. Dust storms, though infrequent, can deposit fine particles across cleared surfaces, requiring periodic maintenance to preserve optimal visibility conditions. Human encroachment represents the most serious contemporary threat to the preservation of the Nazca Lines, as population growth and economic development pressures increase activities within the protected geoglyph zones. The expansion of agricultural areas has brought irrigation systems and farming equipment into proximity with sensitive archaeological sites, creating risks of accidental damage through vehicle traffic and water runoff. Modern farming techniques employ heavy machinery that can cause ground vibrations and soil compaction, extending beyond immediate cultivation areas, potentially affecting the structural integrity of nearby geoglyphic features. The construction of the Pan American Highway through portions of the line fields during the 1930s established a precedent for infrastructure development that continues to threaten archaeological preservation. This major transportation corridor bisects several geometric figures and has facilitated increased human access to previously remote areas of the desert. The highway serves as a conduit for unauthorized vehicle traffic that ventures into protected zones, creating new tracks and disturbing ancient surface preparations. The cumulative impact of repeated vehicle passages can permanently alter soil compaction patterns and destroy the delicate balance of surface materials that maintains geoglyphic visibility. Unauthorized foot traffic from tourists and curiosity seekers has created numerous walking paths that crisscross the geoglyphic areas, leaving permanent scars on the desert surface that will persist for centuries. These informal trails often follow routes that intersect with ancient lines, creating visual confusion that complicates interpretation of original designs. The concentration of foot traffic around the most accessible and well-known figures has created zones of intensive disturbance where multiple overlapping paths obscure the original geoglyphic patterns. The installation of viewing platforms and controlled access routes has reduced but not eliminated the problem of unauthorized pedestrian traffic. Vandalism incidents have inflicted some of the most serious damage to the Nazca Lines in recent decades, with several high-profile cases drawing international attention to the vulnerability of these ancient monuments. The 2014 Greenpeace protest incident, where activists placed yellow cloth letters spelling an environmental message near the hummingbird geoglyph, demonstrated how quickly modern activities can cause irreversible damage to archaeological sites. The activists' footprints and the anchoring points for their banner created permanent scars on the desert surface that will remain visible for generations. This incident highlighted the need for enhanced security measures and stricter enforcement of access restrictions. Commercial mining operations in areas adjacent to the protected zones pose ongoing threats through dust generation, vehicle traffic, and potential expansion into archaeologically sensitive areas. The extraction of sand, gravel, and mineral resources creates airborne particles that can accumulate on geoglyphic surfaces, reducing visual contrast and obscuring geometric patterns. Mining equipment generates ground vibrations that can affect the stability of carefully arranged stone borders and surface preparations. The economic pressures driving resource extraction activities often conflict with preservation priorities, creating ongoing tensions between development interests and archaeological protection. The growth of urban settlements in the Nazca region has increased pressure on water resources and waste management systems that can affect the archaeological zones. Sewage and industrial waste disposal practices sometimes impact groundwater systems that flow beneath the geoglyphic areas, potentially altering soil chemistry and affecting preservation conditions. Urban expansion brings increased vehicle traffic, construction activities, and human presence that create cumulative pressures on the archaeological landscape. The development of tourism infrastructure, while providing economic benefits to local communities, also generates environmental impacts that must be carefully managed to prevent damage to the lines. The designation of the Nazca Lines as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994 represented a crucial milestone in international recognition of their cultural significance and the need for coordinated preservation efforts. This designation brought enhanced legal protection under Peruvian national law and established international oversight mechanisms that monitor preservation conditions and recommend conservation strategies. The World Heritage status has facilitated access to international funding sources for conservation projects and has raised global awareness about the importance of protecting these ancient monuments. The designation requires regular reporting on preservation conditions and mandates consultation with international experts for major management decisions. The UNESCO designation established specific criteria for acceptable activities within the protected zones and created buffer areas that limit development activities in regions surrounding the core archaeological areas. These protective measures include restrictions on vehicle access, limitations on construction activities, and requirements for environmental impact assessments before any development projects can proceed. The international oversight provided through the World Heritage System has proven crucial for maintaining preservation standards and resisting pressure from commercial development interests that might compromise archaeological integrity. Peruvian authorities have implemented comprehensive management strategies that combine legal protection with practical conservation measures designed to address the multiple threats facing the geoglyphic sites. The Ministry of Culture maintains specialised archaeological teams that conduct regular monitoring of preservation conditions and coordinate maintenance activities when necessary. These teams employ systematic survey methods to document changes in line visibility, assess damage from natural and human causes, and implement corrective measures to prevent further deterioration. The establishment of permanent field stations enables continuous monitoring and rapid response to preservation emergencies. The installation of physical barriers and warning systems has helped reduce unauthorised access to the most vulnerable areas while maintaining legitimate research and tourism activities. Perimeter fencing around sensitive zones creates clear boundaries that discourage casual trespassing while allowing controlled access for scientific purposes. Security patrols using both ground-based and aerial surveillance methods help detect and deter vandalism attempts before serious damage can occur. The coordination between local law enforcement and archaeological authorities has improved response times and enforcement effectiveness for protection violations. Modern archaeological techniques have revolutionized documentation and analysis capabilities while providing new tools for preservation monitoring and damage assessment. Light detection and ranging technology enables researchers to create detailed three-dimensional maps of geoglyphic surfaces with centimetre-level accuracy, providing baseline documentation that can detect subtle changes over time. These high-resolution topographical surveys reveal construction details and surface modifications that were previously invisible through conventional mapping methods. The precision of LiDAR data enables researchers to distinguish between original ancient features and modern disturbances with unprecedented clarity. Drone survey systems have transformed aerial documentation capabilities by providing flexible, cost-effective platforms for regular monitoring of preservation conditions across the extensive geoglyphic areas. Modern unmanned aerial vehicles equipped with high-resolution cameras and specialised sensors can conduct systematic surveys that document changes in line visibility, assess damage from recent events, and monitor the effectiveness of conservation measures. The ability to conduct frequent aerial surveys without the expense and logistical complexity of manned aircraft has greatly enhanced preservation monitoring capabilities. Digital preservation methods have created permanent archives of geoglyphic documentation that will preserve detailed records of current conditions for future researchers and conservation specialists. High-resolution photography, three-dimensional modelling, and virtual reality reconstructions provide comprehensive digital records that capture every aspect of the current state of the lines. These digital archives serve multiple functions, including research support, educational applications, and disaster recovery planning that could guide restoration efforts if physical damage occurs. The creation of multiple backup copies stored in different geographical locations ensures that this documentation will survive potential local disasters or institutional changes. Photogrammetric techniques enable researchers to create precise measurements and three-dimensional models from aerial photography, providing cost-effective alternatives to expensive surveying equipment for many documentation purposes. These methods can produce accurate maps and elevation models that support both research activities and preservation planning. The ability to process historical aerial photographs using modern photogrammetric software has enabled researchers to create retrospective documentation of preservation conditions and track changes that occurred before systematic monitoring programs began. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed subsurface features and construction details that provide new insights into geoglyphic creation techniques, while identifying areas where preservation conditions may be compromised. These non-invasive investigation methods can detect buried archaeological features, assess soil stability, and identify potential threats to surface preservation without disturbing the ancient markings. The ability to examine subsurface conditions has proven particularly valuable for understanding construction sequences and identifying areas where additional protective measures may be necessary. Future research directions increasingly emphasize interdisciplinary approaches that combine archaeological expertise with specialized knowledge from astronomy, anthropology, engineering, and environmental science. The complexity of questions surrounding geoglyphic function and cultural significance requires collaborative research teams that can address multiple aspects of these ancient monuments simultaneously. Archaeological investigations continue to refine understanding of construction techniques and cultural contexts, while astronomical research explores potential celestial alignments and calendar functions. Anthropological studies examine ethnographic parallels and cultural continuities that may illuminate ancient purposes and meanings. The integration of archaeological and astronomical research has produced more sophisticated models for evaluating potential celestial alignments, while addressing statistical and methodological limitations that affected earlier studies. Modern archaeoastronomical methods employ computer modelling to calculate historical stellar positions with greater precision while using statistical analysis to evaluate the significance of observed alignments. These approaches have confirmed some astronomical connections, while providing more rigorous frameworks for distinguishing intentional alignments from chance correspondences. Environmental archaeology has emerged as a crucial research direction that examines the relationship between geoglyphic construction and ancient environmental conditions, climate patterns, and resource availability. These studies integrate paleoclimatic data with archaeological evidence to understand how environmental factors influence settlement patterns, resource management strategies, and the timing of major construction projects. The correlation between geoglyphic construction phases and environmental conditions provides insights into the cultural motivations and practical considerations that drove these massive landscape modification projects. Anthropological research continues to explore ethnographic parallels and cultural continuities that may illuminate the social and religious functions of the ancient geoglyphs. Studies of contemporary Andean communities document traditional practices involving landscape modification, ceremonial pathway systems, and water management techniques that may preserve elements of ancient cultural traditions. These ethnographic investigations provide cultural frameworks for interpreting archaeological evidence while identifying potential research directions that might yield new insights into geoglyphic functions and meanings. The application of new technologies to geoglyphic research continues to expand analytical capabilities while opening previously unexplored research directions. Satellite imagery analysis enables researchers to identify previously unknown geoglyphic features and monitor preservation conditions across vast areas with unprecedented efficiency. Multispectral imaging reveals surface details and construction features that are invisible to conventional photography, providing new data for understanding ancient construction techniques and current preservation needs. Advances in material science have enabled more sophisticated analysis of artifacts and soil samples from geoglyphic sites, providing insights into ancient technologies and environmental conditions. Improved dating techniques offer greater precision for establishing construction chronologies and correlating geoglyphic activities with broader cultural developments. The continued refinement of analytical methods promises to yield new discoveries and resolve long-standing questions about these remarkable ancient monuments. The preservation of the Nazca Lines for future generations requires continued vigilance, international cooperation, and adaptive management strategies that can address emerging threats while maintaining the integrity of these irreplaceable archaeological resources. The combination of legal protection, scientific monitoring, and public education provides the foundation for long-term preservation, but success depends on sustained commitment from local communities, national authorities, and the international scientific community. The lessons learned from preservation efforts at Nazca will inform conservation strategies for other threatened archaeological sites worldwide, contributing to global efforts to protect humanity's cultural heritage. The Nazca Lines represent one of humanity's most remarkable achievements in landscape art and engineering, demonstrating the sophisticated capabilities of ancient civilizations while continuing to inspire wonder and scientific inquiry. Whether interpreted as astronomical calendars, ceremonial pathways, territorial markers, or evidence of extraterrestrial contact, these ancient markings provide tangible connections to prehistoric cultures that transformed one of Earth's most challenging environments into a canvas for monumental artistic expression. Their preservation ensures that future generations will inherit the opportunity to study, appreciate, and learn from these extraordinary testimonies to human creativity and ingenuity that have survived for over a millennium in the Peruvian desert.